Hi, it's John and welcome to the channel. It is 5 a.m. Tuesday, June the 24th with the big blue mug of coffee. Hope you're having a great day today. I certainly am. And in case you're wondering, my shirt says meatitarian. Okay, there's a pig on there. All right. Thanks for being here. If you're a subscriber, thanks very much for that. I do appreciate it. And if you're not, please click on subscribe. Thank you. So, this video today is inspired by this new deal that Mark Carney has signed with the European Union. The CBC says it's a deepening European defense and security partnership. Carney, in his speech yesterday, described it as being about defense, digital. So I'm wondering if a digital ID is coming real soon. Think about that. Supply chains to security and to climate. And certainly people have been commenting on this, on how this is a good thing. Listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to put my blinders on here. Making deals with other countries and unions is a good idea, but I believe this deal is diabolical, and I'm going to run through that in this video, and hopefully I can make it short for you. But Mark Carney certainly is doing this because of the United States, for sure, because we have an issue when it comes to tariffs with the United States, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But I also think Mark Carney is doing this because he identifies with Europe more than he does with Canada and with the United States. Now, I see myself as an Albertan, not a Canadian. I believe I have more in common with the states to the south of me than I do with the provinces to the east of me. I would hand over the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms for the Constitution of the United States in a moment. Property rights, gun rights, freedom of the press, which we're getting less and less of here in Canada, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, all these things are important to me. And Section 1 of the Charter here in Canada just completely nullify those things because you don't have any rights really when it comes to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada. But Mark Carney sees himself more as a European than he does as a Canadian, and he has more roots with Europe than he does with the United States, our biggest trading partner. He said it before, and he said it again yesterday.
And as the most European of the non-European countries, Canada looks first to the European Union to build a better world.
First, do you feel European at all? I don't feel European at all. I have more of a kinship with people to the south of us in the United States than I do with Europe. I hate when politicians speak on behalf of Canadians like that. I just hate it. I am not a European. I don't feel any kinship whatsoever with the European Union. But this deal could end up being a disaster for Canada. This is poking the finger in the eye of Donald Trump, which Carney's supporters just love. But a good deal with the EU could turn into a disastrous deal with the United States of America. But the chess pieces are starting to fall in place, just as I envisioned it back during the election campaign. He's hitching his wagon with the EU for a reason. It all comes back to one thing, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. Look at this tweet he put out 14 hours ago. In the face of rising global threats, Canada is building ever stronger alliances. What's the global threat? Is that China to Mark Carney? No, he loves China and Xi Jinping. Is that terrorism? No. The global threat they're talking about here is Donald Trump. And the deal that he was supposed to negotiate with Donald Trump is getting further and further and further away day by day. National Post, after agreeing 30-day timeline, Mark Carney now says nothing's assured on deal with the U.S. So where is this going? And why is it important to you here in Canada? Well, we want our economy to get better. How is any of this dealing with the EU benefiting you? What's the most important thing to you right now? Your bottom line? The cost of living, which gets harder and harder for you to deal with on a daily basis in this country? This is doing nothing to help you at all, and it could have disastrous effects if we don't get a deal with Donald Trump in the United States. The number one thing that got him elected, Mark Carney. But here it is right here, folks. Why is he hitching his wagon with the EU? Prime Minister of Canada tweet. There he is in the middle. I'm not sure who the guy on the right is. I can't remember his name, but that's Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU. On his right, trade, security, and climate. What does Mark Carbon, Freudian slip. What does Mark Carney want to do with Canadian oil?
Now, within the broader context of national interest, the interest is in, as mentioned in the press release, decarbonized barrels. So working alongside forms of decarbonization for those barrels. That is absolutely in our interest. It provides diversification of trade partners.
He wants to decarbonize it. Of course he does. What does this mean for the oil and gas industry here in Canada? We'll get to that in just a moment. But this has got a lot to do with climate. His favorite topic, folks. This is where he made billions of dollars for himself and companies. Climate. And the EU is all in when it comes to climate. Carney mentioned it in his speech yesterday when he was talking about this deal with the EU.
We're launching comprehensive negotiations across multiple areas of cooperation and connection, trade, security, digital, climate. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals.
So this has a lot to do with climate. The EU loves this stuff. He's made billions of dollars for himself and his businesses, but it benefits you in no way at all. It makes you poorer. And does the United States care about decarbonized oil? Not with the guy in the White House right now, and we sell most of our oil to the United States of America. But Carney's got a plan. If you want to make a deal with Canada and the European Union and some other countries around the world, this is what you have to do.
So on the one hand, we have our largest trading partner, as we've been discussing, attacking us, putting tariffs on us. On the other hand, we have the opportunity to diversify trade. Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the European Union? Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the United Kingdom? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon.
So in Mark Carney's world, the only way you can make a deal with Canada and the EU is to have a price on carbon. Here's an article from the National Post. Mark Carney's carbon tariff would hurt Canadians and help no one, and it won't help the climate. It's going to cost you money, and it could cost us a trade deal with our biggest trading partner. This is the New World Order, folks. This is globalism on steroids. He even talked about it when he talked about this deal with the EU.
So we're meeting now in that context in, as you just said, in hard times. We might say even a hinge moment of history, a world that's more dangerous and divided, a time where the rules-based international, the global order, rules-based global order is under threat, in a time when technological change is accelerating. And we really have two choices as a jurisdiction, as a country in this circumstance. We can nostalgically look back and long for the old order to somehow return, or we can build a new one with purpose and partnership.
The rules-based global order. I didn't realize we were playing by any specific rules, but now it's Mark Carney in the EU, and I guess lining up against the biggest economy in the world, our biggest trading partner, the United States of America. How long before American industry starts heading south? Ones that are probably in Ontario that make these things called cars. They're going to have to leave eventually. The tariffs are hurting enough. And of course, we're not going to have any gas-powered cars in Canada in the next about 9 years now, I guess it is. So they're going to go south. Is this what you voted for? No, you voted for economic stability, and you voted for a better way of living in Canada. You voted for being able to buy a house that's affordable, or rent an apartment that's affordable, or less crime on the streets, less drugs, these kind of things. The important stuff. Less immigration. The EU is further down the road when it comes to their immigration problems than Canada is, but we still have record numbers of people coming in here. He's done nothing about that. What does this mean for our oil and gas industry? It all comes down to that for me. I live in Alberta. Scott Moe, I played a clip the other day. They had that meeting between Alberta and Saskatchewan. Their caucuses met. Scott Moe says, we've got hundreds of things we want done. Carney's going to throw a few scraps. It'll be enough to buy a few votes here in Alberta. and appease people who want to see a pipeline, but we have big things we want to do in here in Alberta, and we're not going to get it. Here's an article from just yesterday. Rick Bell, Calgary's son, Danielle Smith goes on offense against a two-faced Mark Carney. For Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, the clock is ticking and it's time to cut through Mark Carney's weasel words. How long before he makes a commitment to big things here in Alberta, like an oil pipeline? His weasel word, number one, is consensus, which we'll never have. And every time he talks about growing our economy or building big things over here, he has to throw the words Aboriginals in on everything because that's a veto. C5's a new veto. Provinces are a veto on anything that gets built in this province. If you're an Albertan, don't buy anything this guy says. And don't accept the scraps he's going to throw us to try to appease us because he says he's going to build the biggest economy in the G7. It ain't going to happen. Not if he's hitching his wagon with the EU. All the chess pieces are falling into place. We knew it as soon as he got into the race to be the leader of the Liberal Party. You and I knew it. That's why we didn't vote for this guy. And Mark Carney's weasel words, as Rick Bell wrote in that article in the Calgary Sun. What do you think? Let me know. Ring the bell if you like the... No, give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Ring the bell for notifications. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.